Hey everyone, my name is Lorraine Galvis. I'm an entertainment attorney based in New York City. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous spring day today. So I thought I would try something different and take this opportunity to get some one-on-one time with people that I know, people that I don't know, clients, friends. It's not unusual that in my course of business, where I mostly represent artists, that I get a lot of questions. And for those who may follow me on Instagram or Facebook or even LinkedIn, you may recall that I posted an article earlier this week, well, my comments on an article, which had to do with the current Cardi B lawsuit that involves herself and her manager, her former manager, who is claiming that Cardi basically breached her contract, which in layman's terms means she did not complete her promises or she did not perform as her contract with her previous manager said that she should. So I'm being very general and I'm touching on this topic very lightly because this is a video and we don't have that much time. But in a nutshell, that's one of the key issues there that the former manager is alleging. On the other side of that, my comments had more to do with the importance of the issues that are raised now by this lawsuit. And one of the big ones is conflicts of interest. So I wanted to take this opportunity to respond to, again, like I said, some of the people that reached out to me with questions, with comments. I got a lot of thank yous from people saying that they're very happy that I just kind of openly talked about some of these issues that I think often artists are afraid to talk about, honestly. Let's just be real, right? We don't want to get blacklisted. We don't want to talk about certain things that we think may be offensive to others, but that they are important issues, right? And they have to be talked about, especially in this day and age where it seems like there's a forum for everything and anything. So I want to take this opportunity to just kind of go through some of these issues and just very lightly. And the way I'm going to do that is just basically walking you through a couple of points of what a management agreement is, right? Now, if you're an artist, you have probably seen a management contract. You have been offered a management contract. You may have a management contract that you're currently considering entering into with a manager. And this is not unusual in our course of business, right? The artist is the talent, right? The artist is the product. You write your music, you work on your look, you work on your brand, you practice, you write songs, you do what you need to do to make your dreams come true, to live out your passions, to make your living making music, right? And that's a gift. That's a gift, and that is a talent that is enviable, and many of us wish that we had, right? But on the other side of that, we also have people that help artists do what they need to do. And those people would be the management, right? The producers, the record labels, the people that are on the other side working with the artist to make a product and to create something very special that will eventually be exploited and will create revenue streams for many different people. So that's really what I want to take this opportunity to do. And so let's start by some of the questions that I've gotten from a lot of you. What is a management contract, right? What does it do? Why do we need them? What are their purposes? And I apologize in advance. This is New York City. It's very loud here, and there's an ambulance passing by as we speak. So let's let them go by. And now they have, and now I can continue speaking with you. So let's start with the management agreement, right? A management agreement is a piece of paper. Let's just get very basic. I don't want to inundate anyone with legal terms. I really want to keep it one-on-one, very basic, so that you can get a good understanding of what these documents are and why people enter them and what their purpose is, right? What are we seeking to achieve with the management contract? So we have an artist. The artist is developing their craft. The artist is ready to take their craft to the next level. And so in order for the artist to continue to concentrate on what they are doing, it is very commonplace for the artist to feel like, maybe now's the time for a manager. And so you will probably go seek maybe a referral from someone. Maybe there's an artist that you really, really like, or an up-and-coming band or group that you checked out, and you meet their manager. They're usually at their shows. They might be at signings, maybe at a concert or a different musical event. Some kind of platform or event that will allow you to make a connection with this person that you believe can take your career to the next level, be it through their connections, be it through their experience in working with new artists, right? So you've now found this manager that you love, or this manager has found you at one of your shows or at one of your signings or one of your public performances. And now the manager says, you know what, I like you, I want to work with you. And you feel the same about that manager, and so a management contract is now on the table. You say, oh my God, I'm so excited, and you don't sign. No, guys, you don't sign. You read it first. You give the guy or you give the young woman a handshake, and you say, thank you so much for this contract. Let me take it to my attorney. Let me have them look at it, and I will get back to you with comments. Guys, this is essential, okay? Let's just start by clearing the air right now. Let me relieve you of your fear that saying that you're going to take this contract to an attorney is going to in any way ruin this opportunity for you, okay? It is totally normal and okay for you to bring that contract to an attorney, to your attorney, someone like you, to look at before you sign, okay? 1. 2, if that manager gives you any pushback for taking that contract to an attorney, that is a clear indication that this is not someone that you need to be working with. 3, spend the $200, get a good consultation with an experienced entertainment attorney, not a real estate attorney, not a wills and trust attorney, not a malpractice attorney, not a family attorney that has no experience with entertainment law. Hire an entertainment lawyer, such as myself, with experience, pay them their consultation fee, and you bring them the agreement. And you sit there with the attorney for at least an hour getting feedback on what this document means. What does it say? What does it say I have to do? What does it say that the manager has to do? What changes do we need to make this document fair so that it serves both parties' interests, right? So that it's good for you and it's good for the manager. How do we do that? Okay, so now that we've cleared the air there, that's really the first and most important step. So now you've gone to your attorney, the attorney has read over the document, they have made changes. You are now ready to bring that document back to the manager with your changes, with feedback that you've discussed with the attorney. Okay? And oftentimes the attorney will do this on your behalf if you hire them. They would be more than happy. I do that all the time. Once the client decides to hire me, after we have our initial consultation, I will go ahead and take the document, make my notes, run it over with the client. If the client's okay with it, I then send it to the manager on the client's behalf. It's a very awesome professional way to approach the situation. The other manager now has an opportunity to comment or to have his attorney communicate directly with me, and guess what? The pressure is no longer on you or on the manager to have an awkward conversation about terms and definitions and maybe language that you just don't get. So save yourself the heartache, save yourself the pressure and the stress. Hire a good attorney, okay? So that you understand what's in the document and what the attorney is going to tell you, let me run through just very generally, very, very surface. We're going to run through a couple of the key points in a management contract, okay? So the contract, like any other, will have the names of the parties, right? Very important. Who are the people entering this contract? It will be the artist, you, and the manager, the person that sought you out or that you sought to represent your interests, right, in the music business. The person that's going to be introducing you to all their networks, the person that's going to be trying to get you a record deal, the person that's going to be really putting themselves out there because they believe in you. They believe in your product. They believe in your talent, and they believe that with you, they can be successful, that they can also make money, right? This is a two-way street. I get you a deal, I get you placements, I get you in front of the people that need to see you, and in turn, that exposure will generate income, that exposure will generate deals and other streams of revenue that will benefit the both of us. So we have parties, right? You and the manager. The contract also has a term, right? So contracts like management agreements, which can be exclusive and non-exclusive, and we can get into that a little bit later, these contracts are not indefinite in nature. What does that mean? That means that these contracts are not forever, right? You hire the manager or the manager assigns you for a definite period of time. So definite means that there is a beginning and an end. Most contracts can be anywhere between a year and 3 years, right? I've seen contracts all the way to 5 years. And those are rare, more rare as the time has gone by, but I would say standard anywhere from 18 months, a year, 18 months to 3 years is pretty standard, pretty fair. So that would be your term, right? Services. What services are being performed under the terms of this contract? What does the artist promise to do? You, right? What services and what promises are you making to the manager? And what services and promises is the manager making to you and agreeing to perform for you? So, exclusive and non-exclusive. Most management agreements for artists, right, will likely be exclusive management agreements. And what that means is that just the way that you agree to the manager that they will be the only ones managing you, the manager also agrees not to take on any other artists, right? So all the services that they are performing for you are only for you, exclusively for you. And all the services that you are going to be performing, in the sense that the manager will be representing you in those transactions, you agree that the manager will be the only person allowed to say that they represent you, the only person allowed to act and to, represent you to third parties on your behalf, right? No other managers, that's your promise, and the manager promises no other artists. So that's generally the scope and the definition of an exclusive management agreement. A non-exclusive management agreement, on the other hand, is where the artist doesn't mind and agrees that the manager can manage their career, your career, but the manager may also be managing other artists, right? And maybe providing those services to other artists simultaneously with you. So that's also not unusual, and it's a perfectly fine arrangement as long as both parties are okay with that. On the other hand, the artist, which is kind of a little weird thing here, the artist usually is not non-exclusive to the manager. And what that means is that even though the manager is managing several people, the artist usually still has one manager. Now there may be some agreements where that relationship is different, but usually, you have one manager, right? And you might have a booking agent, you might have a publicist. But the non-exclusivity part of it, right, the more than one, usually applies to the manager. And it's basically giving the manager permission to manage several other artists, including yourself. But the artist usually has the one manager. So that's that, right? We have exclusive and non-exclusive. On to the services. So a manager, a good manager, right? And if you've done your homework, you have researched the manager, you've asked for referrals, you've talked to the artist that the manager works with. A good manager is going to be the person that's going to guide you, counsel you, right? He's going to be kind of your mouthpiece. He's going to be the person representing you when you are unable to interact, right? You're going to be focusing on performing, building your craft, going to classes, doing shows, doing presentations, public performances, and so the manager is going to be the person responsible for booking those shows, for example, right? They're going to be responsible for talking to people at the record label, right? Taking your demo, taking your links, sending your links via email to all their contacts, trying to land you a deal, trying to get you work, trying to get you collaborations with other songwriters and producers, etc., right? So this is what the manager, what the manager is promising to do in something like a management contract. With that said, managers can often act as agents, but depending on the jurisdiction, they may need a license to do that. So depending on where you live, for example, in California, booking agents must have a license. Talent agencies must have a license to act as an agent and perform those duties, right? And they are considered separate from management duties. So depending on where you live, that may not be necessary. New York is a little bit not as stringent in that sense, right? So oftentimes managers will be managers and agents. So that's just something to keep in mind, because if you have both, if you have a manager and an agent, right, each one will have a cut of your revenue. So it's something to keep in mind when you're negotiating other deals, and that will be a conversation for another time. For this video, for this purpose only, we're just going to focus on the management agreement. So now we have services from the manager to the artist, right? And we've only talked about some of those. There are many others. But let's say now the artist, right? The artist is now going to make promises to the manager as well under the same contract. And usually the big one there is exclusivity, the way we talked about, right? You agree to only have the one manager and the one manager only. Another important part there is commission, right? And commission is another big point of these contracts. So this kind of segues a little bit into that. In exchange for the services that the manager is providing you, you are now agreeing and promising to pay that manager a commission. What is a commission? A commission is a percentage of your gross earnings. What are your gross earnings? Your gross earnings are all the money that you make from shows, merchandising, record sales, royalties, anything entertainment related. Usually it should be entertainment related, goes into a big pot, and that big pot, out of that 100%, right, if that big pot equals $100, the manager gets a cut of that. So a standard cut for a manager in entertainment nowadays can range from 15 to about 25%. Now granted, that percentage can range depending on the relationship between the manager and the artist, the length of time they've known each other, the caliber of the artist, right? If it's a really, really big artist, or maybe someone like you who's starting out or has a little bit of presence or a little bit of success, the more of that you have, the more leverage you have to negotiate that rate. But standard, honestly, standard, I'd say between 15 and 20%, and I want to say 20% is probably fair market these days. So in exchange for the services that the manager is providing, you promise to pay the manager a commission, which is you promise to give them a cut of what you make. So if that is 20%, you earned $100, the manager gets 20% off the top, right? And we call that gross pay. So gross means off the top, before you can pay anyone else, the manager gets paid first, right? Net pay is when the managers get paid after you've paid everyone else. And that's a little more unusual, because the idea is that were it not for the manager's efforts to get you that work, you wouldn't be making that money in the first place. So it is very much more commonplace, I would say, for managers to get paid out of gross receipts, which is off the top, right? $100, manager gets $20, you get $80. Okay? So that's a little bit more. We've segued a little bit into services and commission and some of these other important points in a management agreement, right? Another thing to keep in mind are options, right? So we have a term, we talked about a term earlier for the contract, and depending on the options, if there are any in your management agreement, options allow the parties to decide when a contract is terminated and when it can be renewed and how it can be renewed and under what circumstances it can be renewed or terminated for that matter. So a very important point that the attorney will try to do and seek in the contract, and I may be jumbling that up a little bit, I apologize. It's been a long day. But something very important, and the reason you should have an attorney look at this agreement is for that very, very important reason, is that most of the options in a management contract are very one-sided. What does that mean? The language in the management agreement, when you get it the first time, right, when the manager just hands it to you, it's going to be written up to represent the manager's best interest, right? And it's going to be drawn up and written so that it gives him the benefit of the agreement. That's normal, right? But when you bring it to your attorney, my job, if you hire me or you hire another entertainment attorney, is to get you on as much equal footing as possible in that agreement, right? You may be a new artist, you may not have much leverage, but our goal is to get as fair as an agreement as we can, right? Get the fairest terms that we can for you so that you're not starting really at zero or less. You know, you're at an equal footing as much as possible with the manager, depending on the manager, right? If it's a really big manager and he's representing a roster of really popular artists, you may not have that leverage. Regardless of how successful you are, you know, they're still pretty famous, so pretty well known, and they've, you know, really, really made some significant steps in the business for other artists. So different factors will weigh into that. But for your purposes, let's just assume it's, you know, you have a little bit of success, you've been doing some shows, and you find a manager that you know, maybe met going to see a band or a group that you really like, and the guy really knows, or the woman really knows what they're doing, and you know, you like them, you have a good chemistry, they want to offer you a deal. So you're now here, and there are options, right? The contract, let's keep it simple. The contract is for a year. And at the end of that year, the contract may say that it renews automatically. The parties don't have to do anything to get it renewed. But in the case that it is not an automatic renewal, how do we end it, right? If things aren't going the way we hope that they would go, how do we end it? Or how do we renew it if we love the way things have been going? How do we renew our deal? So an automatic renewal generally will contain language where you don't have to do anything, right? And if both parties are okay with that, then we leave that. We leave it the way it is. But if there are options in there, you want to make sure that those options are, you know, allowing you to have the same rights as the manager to either renew or terminate the agreement. Now, there is usually a window of time in which the parties can do exactly that. So if your contract is for a year and the renewal period or the termination period is 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, what that means is that in the 9th month, 9 months into your agreement, or 10 months in or 11 months in, depending on the 30, 60, 90-day window, you want to give notice to the manager, right? Or the manager will give you notice of their desire to renew the agreement or to terminate the agreement, right? And so my goal is to make sure that both parties have that right, because if you're not happy, if the manager is not happy, you don't want to be locked into an automatic option where you have no choice, right? Only the manager can decide if they want to keep you or let you go, right? No one likes that. No one likes that. So that's a very key point in these kind of agreements, and you want to pay very, very careful attention to that. So that's, in a nutshell, terms. We've talked about commission, we've talked about the parties, we've talked about options, we've talked about services, we've talked about renewal and termination. So another key thing you want to keep in mind is the jurisdiction, right? When you sign these contracts, depending on where you live or where you're living, right? Sometimes people are from the Midwest or they're from other parts of the country, but they move to New York or they move to Los Angeles to further their career, to seek opportunities. So I'm in New York, and most of the time the artists I represent are also in New York for the most part. Some are in California, some are in Nevada, some are in different states or jurisdictions, as we lawyers say. But usually the management contract will be in a jurisdiction that either applies to both parties or is set for where the manager may have his place of business, right? So let's just say, let's keep it simple. You met your manager in New York, you live in New York, you mostly work in New York. The choice of law, which is what we refer to that as, would be New York, which means in the event of a dispute, meaning you and the manager are not getting along, you guys are not happy, we now need to figure out if this agreement can be terminated, or if things aren't that nice, which often they aren't, and we have to seek out potential litigation, what rules will apply, whose state laws will apply, right? And so in that case, it would be New York. So that's very, very important. The laws from state to state can vary, and depending on where you live or where the agreement was entered into, in the event of a dispute, you want to make sure that those laws fully benefit you, so that you can have a full reach of the laws available to you. And the remedies, right? Remedies for us are, how can we fix this at law, right? And I'm keeping it very colloquial because, again, I don't want you guys to get confused with some of the legal terms. So forgive me if I waffle back and forth, but I just want to make sure that you can follow. So that's very important there. Now, in terms of remedies, right? The contract will be very specific about what to do in the event of a dispute, what to do in the event that you and the manager are not getting along, you're not happy with his services, or maybe they're not happy with you. They don't feel like it's a good working relationship, they want to terminate it, right? So we hope this never happens, but if it does, the contract will be very specific and set out ways in which these disputes can be resolved. So it is very common for contracts to say that you have basically, both parties have access to all the remedies available at law. So for us, that would be litigation, or for you, that would be litigation, that could be mediation, that could be anything that the law makes available to you to solve this problem. You could file a lawsuit, you could write a demand letter, have your lawyer write a demand letter to the other side, to the manager, or the manager, if they are unhappy with anything, or if they feel like you haven't fulfilled your services, they have the right to resort to litigation. It's also common for people to try to use arbitration. That's another remedy at law. Usually if you have arbitration, you also don't have litigation, right? It's one either or. So depending on what the parties agree to, what they are comfortable with, this can really vary. So that's basically it in a nutshell. The very, very last point I will touch on is sunset clauses, right? And so we're almost at 30 minutes, so I will go through this very quickly. Sunset clauses are basically what we refer to as language in the contract that basically sets out how a manager will continue to get paid from the artist even after the contract has been terminated, right? So let's say you have a contract with the manager, maybe things didn't work out, you both agree to terminate. You terminate the contract, let's say today, I'll just use a random date, May 1st, right? Just because we're terminating the contract on May 1st does not mean that you stop working, right? So maybe you have 2 shows after May 1st that the manager booked for you during the time that the contract was actually valid, right? Or maybe you don't have any shows. Maybe you're just working on your album. Maybe you're doing different appearances where you're getting paid. And the manager, through this sunset clause, would still be entitled to a portion of your income, even after the contract has been terminated. But the reason we call it a sunset clause is because the amount of compensation that he's entitled to will be diminishing over the course of time. So maybe for the first 60 days, they are receiving their full 20%, just the way they did when the contract was valid. But maybe for the next 6 months after that, it goes down to 15 or 10%. Then for another 3 months, maybe it goes down to 5% or maybe 0. So that's what sunset clauses mean in a nutshell. It's a very, very quick explanation. Like I said, we're 30 minutes into the video, and I don't want to give you guys too much information as to confuse you. However, I will make myself available for more questions, and also stay tuned to more videos. I think this is a cool idea, and it gives me a way to interact with you guys directly and answer your questions. I will put some follow-up videos based on my following of the Cardi B lawsuit, which I think is going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to hearing the outcome of that case. I actually met her attorney who's leading that case. It was very, very cool. He's a seasoned litigator, and he really brought up some issues such as conflicts of interest, such as conflicts of interest and double dipping, triple dipping, and some of these really important issues, but sad to say, these are things that happen all the time. And I'm really, really excited. I'm really, really looking forward to hopefully seeing a different result here, seeing at least a little bit of the back and forth so that things don't just get closed up in a settlement agreement and then none of us know what happened, right? Which will likely happen. Sadly, I feel like it might, but let's see. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm optimistic. I want to see some good legal arguments, some good legal battles, and see what comes out of this, because it could be very, very changing, I think, and very, very effective in a good way for the industry. But again, if you have any questions, I hope this video, first of all, was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. My email is Lorraine, my first name, LORRAINE, at galvisandcompany.com. That is GALVISANDCOMPANY.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at Galvis and Company, or on LinkedIn under my name. You can easily find me there, or on Facebook, also Galvis and Company. We provide legal services for creators, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your feedback, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Have a great weekend.